But our first act tonight is Mark and Marie Knoll, and they are going to be doing their rendition of A Hole in the Bucket. They are going to be accompanied by Mr. Ralph Kane.
Henry, did you fetch that water? Water.
Liza, there's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, there's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, a hole.
Well, fix it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry, and fix it, dear Henry, fix it.
With what shall I fix it, dear Liza, with what shall I fix it, dear Liza, with what?
With a stick, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry, with a stick, dear Henry, fix it with a stick.
But the stick is too large, dear Liza, but the stick is too large, dear Liza. It's too big.
Then cut it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry, then cut it, dear Henry, cut it.
With what shall I cut it, dear Liza, with what shall I cut it, dear Liza, with what?
With an axe, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry, with an axe, dear Henry, use an axe.
An axe, huh? Let me see if I can find an axe here. Yeah. But the axe is too dull, dear Liza, but the axe is too dull, dear Liza. It's too dull.
Then sharpen it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry, then sharpen it, dear Henry, sharpen it.
With what shall I sharpen it, dear Liza, with what shall I sharpen it, dear Liza, with what?
With a stone, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry, with a stone, dear Henry, use a stone.
Where the heck am I going to find something like that? Hey, Scott, you don't happen to have a whetstone on you, do you?
Well, didn't you know that every MC carries a whetstone in his pocket?
Carry one all the time. Look at it. Okay, back to this. But the stone is too dry, dear Liza, but the stone is too dry. Dear Liza, it's just too dry.
Then wet it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry, then wet it, dear Henry, wet it.
With what shall I wet it, dear Liza, with what shall I wet it, dear Liza, with what?
With water, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry, use water, dear Henry, use water.
Oh, Liza, there's a hole in the bucket.
All right, fantastic. You guys thought that was an act. I'm pretty sure what their life is like all the time. All right, so next up is going to be something just a little bit different. We're going to have a reading by Miss Pam Hill, who's going to come up and read The Crippled Lamb, written by Max Lucado. Which chair are you going to sit in?
Right here. Now everyone said, oh, we don't have any children to come up in here. Uh-oh. Be back. Oh, we do have one back there. Come on up. Come on up and sit right here so you can see the pictures. Any. Oh. This really isn't a children's story. This is a story for everyone. I think everyone can get something from this story. Can you see from right there? If you sit on the floor right there? Can you see the book? Okay. Once upon a time, in a sunny valley, there lived a little lamb named Joshua. He was white with black spots, black feet, and sad eyes. Josh felt sad when he saw the other lambs with snow-white wool and no spots. He felt sad when he saw the other sheep with their moms and dads because he didn't have a mom or dad. But he felt saddest when he saw the other lambs running and jumping because he couldn't. Josh had been born with one leg that didn't work right. He was crippled. He always limped when he walked. That's why he always watched while the other lambs ran and played. Josh felt sad and alone, except when Abigail was around. Abigail was Josh's best friend. She didn't look like a friend for a lamb. She was an old cow. She was brown with white blotches that looked like rain puddles on a path. Her belly was as round as a barrel, and her voice was always kind and friendly. Some of Josh's favorite hours were spent with Abigail. They loved to pretend they were on adventures in distant lands. Josh liked to listen to Abigail tell stories about the stars. They would spend hours on the hill looking into the valley. They were good friends. But even with a friend like Abigail, Josh still got sad. It made him sad to be the only lamb who could not run and jump and play in the grass. That's when Abigail would turn to him and say, "Don't be sad, little Joshua. God has a special place for those who feel left out." Josh wanted to believe her, but it was hard. Some days he just felt alone. He really felt alone the day the shepherds decided to take the lambs to the next valley where there was more grass. The sheep had been in the valley so long that the ground was nearly bare. All the sheep were excited when the shepherd told them they were going to a new pasture. As they prepared to leave, Josh hobbled over and took his place on the edge of the group. But the others started laughing at him. "You're too slow to go all the way to the next valley. Go back, slowpoke. We'll never get there if we have to wait on you. Go back, Joshua." That's when Josh looked up and saw the shepherd standing in front of him. "They are right, my little Joshua. You better go back. The trip is too long for you. Go and spend the night in the stable." Josh looked at the man for a long time. Then he turned slowly and limped away. When Josh got to the top of the hill, he looked down and saw all the other sheep headed toward the green grass. Never before had he felt so left out. A big tear slipped out of his eye, rolled down his nose, and fell on a rock. Just then he heard Abigail behind him, and Abigail said what she always said when Josh felt sad. "Don't be sad, little Joshua. God has a special place for those who feel left out." Slowly the two friends turned and walked to the stable together. By the time they got to the little barn, the sun was setting like a big orange ball. Josh and Abigail went inside and began to eat some hay out of the feed box. They were very hungry and the hay tasted good. For a little while, Joshua forgot that he had been left behind. "Go to sleep, little friend," Abigail said after they finished eating. "You've had a hard day." Josh was tired, so he lay down in the corner on some straw and closed his eyes. He felt Abigail lie down beside him, and he was glad to have Abigail as a friend. Soon Josh was asleep. At first he slept soundly, curled up against Abigail's back. In his sleep he dreamed. He dreamed of running and jumping just like the other sheep. He dreamed of long walks with Abigail through the valley. He dreamed of being in a place where he never felt left out. Suddenly, strange noises woke him up. "Abigail," he whispered, "wake up, I'm scared." Abigail lifted her big head and looked around. The stable was dark except for a small lamp hanging on the wall. "Somebody is in here," Josh whispered. They looked across the dimly lighted stable. There, lying on some fresh hay in the feed box, was a baby. A young woman was resting on a big pile of hay beside the feed box. Joshua looked at Abigail, thinking his friend could tell him what was going on, but Abigail was just as surprised as Josh. Josh looked again at the woman and the child, then limped across the stable. He stopped next to the mother and looked into the baby's face. The baby was crying. He was cold. The woman picked up the baby and put him on the hay next to her. Josh looked around the stable for something to keep the baby warm. Usually there were blankets, but not tonight. The shepherds had taken them on their trip across the valley. Then Josh remembered his own soft, warm wool. Timidly, he walked over and curled up close to the baby. "Thank you, little lamb," the baby's mother said softly. Soon the little child stopped crying and went back to sleep. About that time, a man entered the stable carrying some rags. "I'm sorry, Mary," he explained. "This is all the cover I could find." "It's okay," she answered. "This little lamb has kept the new king warm." "A king?" Joshua looked at the baby and wondered who that might be. "His name is Jesus," Mary spoke, as if she knew Josh's question. "God's son. He came from heaven to teach us about God." Just then, there was another noise at the door. It was the shepherds, the ones who had left Joshua behind. Their eyes were big and they were excited. "We saw a bright light and heard the angels," they began. Then they saw Joshua next to the baby. "Joshua, do you know who this baby is?" "He does now." It was the young mother who was speaking. She looked at Joshua and smiled. "God has heard your prayers, little lamb. This little baby is the answer." Joshua looked down at the baby. Somehow he knew this was a special child and this was a special moment. He also understood why he had been born with a crippled leg. Had he been with the other sheep, he would have been in the valley. But since he was different, he was in the stable, among the first to welcome Jesus into the world. He turned and walked back to Abigail and took his place beside his friend. "You were right," he told her. "God does have a special place for me."
All right, that was great. And now, from the very sincere to the very absurd, we now present Miss Jessica Davies. Wow, she hasn't even done anything yet. And her mother singing "I Want to Hippopotamus."
Mom,
Mom,
Jessica, what's up?
I want to tell you what I want for Christmas.
Oh, darling, right now we're in the middle of a show. What are you doing?
I want to tell you what I want for Christmas.
We gotta get going with the show. Can it wait? What?
I want a hippopotamus for Christmas.
You gotta be kidding me.
Only hippopotamus will do.
That's what you interrupting the show for?
Don't want a doll.
What about Dinky
Tinker
Tinker
toy.
toys?
I want to play hippopotamus to play with and enjoy. Want a hippopotamus for
I think we
Christmas.
need to talk about this a little bit.
I don't think Santa Claus will mind you.
I really think you might.
You won't have to use a dirty chimney flue. Just bring him through the front door. That's the easy thing
I don't
to
think you're
do.
gonna get there.
I can see you now on Christmas morning, creeping down the stairs.
What stairs? What stairs?
Oh, what joy, what surprise!
When I open up my eyes and see a hippo hero
standing there. I want a hippopotamus for Christmas.
I don't think so.
Only hippopotamus will do. No crocodiles,
No,
rhinoceros.
no.
I only like hippopotamus.
And I suppose.
And hippopotamus like me
Why
too.
did I know you were also going to say that? I mean, really, I think we need to rethink this a little bit.
Mom says a hippo would eat me up, but then teacher says a hippo is a vegetarian.
I am talking to that teacher as soon as school gets back. Wait till she gets a piece of my mind for this one.
There's lots of room for him in our two-car garage.
We don't have a garage.
Feed him there and wash him there and give him his massage.
No, she won't give me a massage.
See
She's gonna give
me
me
now on Christmas morning, creeping down the
Yes,
stairs.
I can see you in that bedroom.
Oh, what joy, what surprise.
When I open up my eyes and see a hippo
hero standing there. I want a hippopotamus for
The
Christmas.
answer's still gonna be no on that one.
Only hippopotamus will do.
Really? Come on.
No
Crocodiles
crocodiles
are easy. I can get
or
them.
rhinoceros.
No, maybe not that.
I only like hippopotamus.
I suppose that-
Hippopotamus
Yeah, why did
like
you
me
know
too.
I think we're gonna talk about this at home. Go, child. I gotta get the next act on.
So it's probably going to be an interesting conversation when we get home. All right, that was great. This next act is part of the family, and this is Candy Durham, and she is singing Patsy Cline's Walking After Midnight.
Go out walking after midnight, out in the moonlight, just like we used to do. I'm always walking after midnight, searching for you. And walk for miles along the highway. Well, that's just my way of saying I love you. I'm always walking after midnight, searching for you. Stopped to see a weeping willow, crying on his pillow. Baby, he's crying for me. And as the skies turn gloomy, night winds whisper to me, "Come as I can be." I go out walking after midnight, out in the moonlight, just hoping you may be somewhere walking after midnight, searching for me. Stop to see a weeping willow crying on his pillow. Maybe he's crying for me. And as the skies turn gloomy, night winds whisper to me, lonesome as I can be. I go out walking after midnight, out in the moonlight, just hoping you may be somewhere out walking after midnight, searching for me.
All right. So as I just mentioned, we have a few themes going tonight that you'll notice. One of the other themes we have is mothers and daughters. You've already seen one pair, and now we just had Candy Durham, and now next up is Heather Kantz with We Built This City.
We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Say you don't know me or recognize my face. Say you don't care who goes to that kind of place. Believe in the hoopla, sinking in your fight. We got too many runaways, eating up the night. Marconi plays the mama. Listen to the radio, don't you remember? We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Someone always playing corporation games. Who cares? They're always changing corporation names. We just wanna dance here. Someone stole the stage. They call us irresponsible, write us off the page. Marconi plays the mamba. Listen to the radio, don't you remember? We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. It's just another Wednesday on a tired old street. What is it got the choco? And we just lost the beat. Who counts the money underneath the bar? Who rides the wrecking ball into our guitars? Don't tell us you need us, 'cause we're just simple fools looking for America, coming through your schools. Marconi plays the mama, listen to the radio. Don't you remember, we built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll.
All right. Wow. So, we're going to continue with our theme of mothers and daughters. We have for you Heidi Roller and Miss Haley. And they are going to sing Do You Hear What I Hear?
Listen to what I say.
Uh, but next I'm going to bring to the stage Cal Durham again, and he is going to do How to Handle a Woman.
Hello, hello, hello. Well, we're running the full gamut tonight. We went from two crazy, wild and crazy guys from Jamaica to a more serious problem. A problem that's plagued man throughout the centuries. And that is how to coexist and get along great with the feminine sex. You know all about that, right, Max? Yeah. You and me both, brother. Okay, so throughout the ages, man has been plagued with this dilemma. Rich, poor, old, young, they've all faced it. Even the mighty King Arthur had to deal with this problem. But with the advice and counsel of his wise sage, Merlin, the magician, he might just be onto something, as we'll soon find out. By the way, I invited the London Philharmonic Orchestra to accompany me. Pastor said it was just a little bit out of the budget, maybe next year. So if there's a few pregnant pauses, just pretend there's 50 instruments playing. Because I got to go this one a cappella. Blast you, Merlin! This is all your fault. You swore that you had told me everything from A to Z, with nary an omission in between. But I will tell you what, you obviously forgot. That's how a ruler rules a queen. And what of teaching me by turning me from animal to bird, from beaver to the smallest bobolink? Well, I should have had a whirl at changing to a girl to learn the way the creatures think. Oh, but wasn't there a summer eve long, long ago? You and I passed a couple wrangling away. And did I not say, Merlin, what if that chap were I? And did he not give counsel and say, oh, what was it now? My mind is a wall. Oh yes, by Jove, now I recall. How to handle a woman. There's a way, said the wise old man. A way known to every woman since the whole rigmarole began. Do I flatter her? I beg him answer. Do I threaten or cajole or plead? Do I brood or play the gay romancer? Said he, smiling, no indeed. How to handle a woman? Mark me well and I'll tell you, sir. The way to handle a woman is to love her, simply love her, merely love her, love her, love her. Oh, what's wrong, Jenny? Where are you these days? What are you thinking? I don't understand. But nevertheless, Merlin once told me Never be too concerned about what a woman is thinking, because they don't do it very often. Merlin told me that. But what do you do while they're doing it? How to handle a woman. Mark me well, and I'll tell you, sir. The way to handle a woman is to love her. Simply love her. Merely love her. Love her. Oh, just love her.
All right, that was great. Now that we all know how to do that, I'm sure that advice will be useful for somebody. I really don't know who. All right. And we got to work on some more technology here. Yeah. Oh, you're funny. Somebody told me there was going to be hecklers here.
Okay.
All right, so what are you doing here?
I don't know.
Are you in the show?
No.
Do you have an act?
No.
So, you don't know why you're up here?
Nope.
Do you play an instrument?
Not really.
Guitar?
Too many strings attached.
How about the trumpet?
I don't like to toot my own horn.
Okay, I see. How about the piano?
I tried, but I kept losing my keys.
Uh-huh. Okay, play the drums?
Oh, no, it's not polite to snare.
Oh. Okay, what about piccolo?
I'm not into cheap trills.
I think you might have me. How about a kazoo?
God bless you.
Maybe you should go sit down and enjoy the show.
Okay.
And in case anybody didn't know, that was Miss Candy Kane. I don't know if you've noticed, but this show has a sweet tooth.
This is the cremation of Sam McGee. There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The northern lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was the night on the marge of Lake LaBarge. I cremated Sam McGee. Now, Sam McGee was from Tennessee, where the cotton blooms and blows. Why he left his home in the South to roam around the pole, God only knows. He was always cold, but the land of gold seemed to hold him like a spell, though he'd often say in his homely way that he'd sooner live in hell. On a Christmas day, we were mushing our way over the Dawson Trail. Talk of your cold, through the parka's fold, it stabbed like a driven nail. If our eyes we'd close, then the lashes froze till sometimes we couldn't see. It wasn't much fun, but the only one to whimper was Sam McGee. And that very night, as we lay packed tight in our robes beneath the snow, and the dogs were fed and the stars o'erhead were dancing heel and toe, he turned to me, and Cap, says he, I'll cash in this trip, I guess. And if I do, I'm asking that you won't refuse my last request. Well, he seemed so low that I couldn't say no. Then he says with a sort of a moan, it's the cursed cold, and it's gotten right hold, till I'm chilled clean through to the bone. Yet 'tain't being dead, it's my awful dread of the icy grave that pains. So I want you to swear that foul or fair, you'll cremate my last remains. A pal's last need is a thing to heed, so I swore I would not fail. And we started on at the streak of dawn, but God, he looked ghastly pale. He crouched on the sleigh, and he raved all day of his home in Tennessee. And before nightfall, a corpse was all that was left of Sam McGee. There wasn't a breath in that land of death, and I hurried, horror-driven, with a corpse half hid that I couldn't get rid because of a promise given. It was lashed to the sleigh, and it seemed to say, you may tax your brawn and brains, but you promise true, and it's up to you to cremate these last remains. Now a promise made is a debt unpaid, and the trail has its own stern code. In the days to come, though my lips were dumb, in the heart how I cursed that load. In the long, long night by the lone firelight, while the huskies round in a ring howled out their woes to the homeless snows. Oh God, how I loathed that thing. And every day that quiet clay seemed to heavy and heavier grow, and on I went, though the dogs were spent and the grub was getting low. The trail was bad, and I felt half mad, but I swore I would not give in. And I'd often sing to the hateful thing, and it hearkened with a grin. Till I came to the marge of Lake Labarge, and a derelict there lay. It was jammed in the ice, but I saw in a trice it was called the Alice May. And I looked at it, and I thought a bit, and I looked at my frozen chum. Then here, said I, with a sudden cry, is my crematorium. Some planks I tore from the cabin floor, and I lit the boiler fire. Some coal I found that was lying around, and I heaped the fuel higher. The flames just soared, and the furnace roared, such a blaze you'd seldom see. And I burrowed a hole in the glowing coal, and I stuffed in Sam McGee. Then I made a hike, for I didn't like to hear him sizzle so. And the heavens scowled, and the huskies howled, and the wind began to blow. It was icy cold, but the hot sweat rolled down my cheeks, and I don't know why. And the greasy smoke in an inky cloak went streaking down the sky. I do not know how long in the snow I wrestled with grisly fear, but the stars came out and they danced about ere again I ventured near. I was sick with dread, but I bravely said, I'll just take a peep inside. I guess he's cooked, and it's time I looked. Then the door I opened wide. And there sat Sam, looking cool and calm in the heat of the furnace roar. And he wore a smile you could see a mile, and he said, please close that door. It's fine in here, but I greatly fear you'll let in the cold and storm. Since I left Plumtree down in Tennessee, it's the first time I've been warm. There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The northern lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake LaBarge I cremated Sam McGee.
All right. Thank you for that uplifting, lighthearted, all right. So once again, we're going to take a departure and do some more Christmas. So this is a song that was done by Deborah Allen, and luckily for us, we have Deborah Davies. Oh, next we got Patsy Cline again. And she's going to be doing Crazy, although I'm not sure if that's a song title or a description.
Crazy, crazy for feeling so lonely. I'm crazy, crazy for feeling so blue. I knew you'd love me as long as you wanted. And then someday you'd leave me for somebody new. Worry, why do I let myself worry? Wondering what in the world did I do? Oh, that my love could hold you. I'm crazy for trying and crazy for crying, and I'm crazy for loving you. Crazy for thinking that my love could hold you. I'm crazy for trying and crazy for crying, and I'm crazy for loving you.
All right. We appreciate Candy and all of the Durham family. Yeah, let's give them another hand. Okay, so now that we're finished setting up, I'm going to introduce and he'll get this, the very special Ralph Kane.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. My mother thanks you, my father never mind. I was going to sing it, Scott, we kind of had it set up on Sunday. I was going to sing a song called Christmas Dinner. But when Scott told me he wouldn't have a turkey for me and I would have to be the turkey, I changed my mind. No, seriously, Christmas Dinner is a song by Noel Paul Stookey. You know Peter, Paul, and Mary? Yeah, Paul wrote a song called Christmas Dinner. And Candy said, it's too sad. So instead, I'm going to do a song called The Marvelous Toy. This is a participation song. So I need you to become 12-year-olds again. And we're sitting around the campfire, as this song's been sung many times around the campfire. And you got to help me. So can you go zip? Oh, no. You got to go zip. Here we go. We got the zip. Okay. Can you go? I know some of you go like this. That doesn't work that way. You got to go. And if you can't do that, go pop. Ready? Pop. Okay. Now, next one will challenge you. Whirr. Oh, we got some words going on here. We're doing good. We're doing good. Whirr. Okay, I'll tell you when to come in. I'll use a pick for this. It gets it louder. When I was just a wee little lad, full of health and joy, my father homeward came one night and gave to me a toy. A wonder to behold it was, with many colors bright. And the moment I laid eyes on it, it became my heart's delight. It went zip when it moved and when it stopped and whir when it stood still. I never knew just what it was, and I guess I never will. The first time that I picked it up, I had a big surprise. For right on the bottom were two big buttons that looked like big green eyes. I first pushed one and then the other, then I twisted its lid. And when I set it down again, this is what it did. It went zip when it moved and when it stopped and whirr when it stood still. I never knew just what it was, and I guess I never will. Here we go. It first marched right, and then marched left, then marched under a chair. And when I looked where it had gone, it wasn't even there. I started to cry, and my daddy laughed, for he knew what I would find. When I turned around, my marvelous toy would be chucking from behind. It went zip when it moved and when it when it stood still. I never knew just what it was, and I guess I never will. Well, the years have gone by too quickly, it seems. I have my own little boy, and yesterday I gave to him my marvelous little toy. His eyes nearly popped right out of his head, and he gave a squeal of glee. Whee! Neither one of us knows just what it is, but he loves it just like me. It still goes zip when it moved and pop when it stopped, whir when it stood still. I never knew just what it was, and I guess I never will. I gotta tell you a story. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, maybe as much as 6, my dad had what we, my brothers and I, thought was a marvelous little toy. And he'd get it out every once in a while and he'd put some water in it and he'd put it up to his lips. It's a bird whistle. It was a plastic bird whistle. And at one point, as my dad got older, he gave it to me. It is my marvelous little toy. It sits in my study to remind me of my dad, but it also reminds me because he didn't charge me anything for it. He just gave it to me. Kind of reminds me of the free gift of God given to us. Marvelous toy.
All right. Well, we've certainly had a variety of stuff. So, see if I can take care of all these mics now. The next act we have for you is still a Christmas song, and by somebody who really needs no encouragement. Mark Knoll, doing your mean one, Mr. Grinch.
Really, Nelson wrote this? You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel. You're as cuddly as a cactus. You're as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch. You're a bad banana with a greasy black peel. You're a monster, Mr. Grinch. Your heart's an empty hole. Your brain is full of spiders. You've got garlic in your soul, Mr. Grinch. I wouldn't touch you with a 39.5-foot pole. You're a vile one, Mr. Grinch. You have termites in your smile. You have all the tender sweetness of a seasick crocodile, Mr. Grinch. Given the choice between the two of them, I take the seasick crocodile. You are rotten, Mr. Grinch. You're the king of sinful salts. Your heart's a dead tomato blotched with moldy purple spots, Mr. Grinch. You're a 3-decker sauerkraut and toadstool sandwich with arsenic sauce. You nauseate me, Mr. Grinch, with a nauseous super nosh. You're a crooked jerky jockey, and you drive a crooked hoss, Mr. Grinch. Your soul is an appalling dump heap. overflowing with the most disgraceful assortment of rubbish imaginable, mangled up in tangled up knots. You're a foul one, you're a foul one, Mr. Grinch. You're a nasty, wasty skunk. Your heart is full of unwashed socks, your soul is full of gunk, Mr. Grinch. The three words that best describe you are as follows, and I quote, stink, stank, stunk.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so we're running down to the end of it here. So finishing with our themes, so to speak. This last song actually has a couple of the themes going for it. It is family and it is mother-daughter. And so I'm going to present Deborah and Alexis Davies, and they are going to do Where Are You Christmas?
Why can't I find you? Why have you gone away? Where is the laughter you used to bring me? Why can't I hear music play? My world is changing, I'm rearranging. Does that mean Christmas changes too? Where are you, Christmas? Do you remember the one you used to know? I'm not the same one. See what the time's done. Is that why you have let me go? Christmas is here everywhere. Christmas is here if you care. If there is love in your heart and your mind, we'll feel like Christmas all the time.
What is Christmas? It is tenderness for the past, courage for the present, hope for the future.
All right. So we have come to just about the end of our show. We have one more thing that I want to bring up all of our performers up on stage here for one more time. While they're coming up, I would like to personally thank each and every one of the performers. Some of them were cornered very late in the 11th hour, you would say, to do something for the show. And I think they all did really, really well. So give them another hand. Also, this would be a really tough show to do without some technical help. And I want to recognize our technical people. Alexis down here is taking care of our teleprompter. Stand up out there, let them see it. She's doing all the teleprompting for us. And Jessica is back doing the sound for us back there. So we just have one more song for you. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Let your heart be light. From now on, our troubles will be out of sight. Thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight. You have a good, safe trip home.